And you're live, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard, and good evening and welcome to this South Eastern Area Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday, 17th of February 2021. My name is Councillor Nick Skeens and I'm the chair of this committee. This meeting is held under new regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April last year in response to the COVID-19 situation. Please, can I ask everyone present in this meeting to ensure your camera remains on where broadband permits and your microphone remains muted when not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noises and avoid any unintentional disturbances. We're streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during each item, please use the hands up function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak. You are reminded that apart from indicating points of order or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for questions or any other purpose. When speaking and referring to the agenda papers, please ensure you reference a page or paragraph number and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. When invited to speak, please ensure you turn on your microphone. Now, may I ask the officers taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Matt Lee.
Good evening, members. Thank you, Chairman. I am Matt Lee, Lead Specialist Place and Chief Planning Officer at Morden District Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Johnson. Earth to Michael Johnson. Okay, Derek Lawrence.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. Unfortunately, last minute event, neither Michael Johnson or Derek Lawrence were attendant, so we couldn't update you on that. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Louise Staplehurst.
Hello, my name is Louise Staplehurst and I'm a specialist in development management. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernard Casey.
Good evening, members. Bernard Casey, clerk to this evening's committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And are there any other officers present?
No, Chairman.
Well, before I call on the clerk to take the roll call of committee members, can I ask those councillors in attendance to introduce themselves, please? And I guess we'll start at with Anne Hull.
Chairman, Councillor Hull is part of the committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, the ones in attendance. Yeah, I do apologise. Yes, Chrissy Morris.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Are there any other councillors? Thank you, Chrissy. Any other councillors in attendance, not part of the committee? I'll take that as a no. Bernard, please, can you now carry out a roll call of members to confirm who is in attendance?
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I will call your names in alphabetical order, starting with Councillor Bassinger.
You're muted.
Yeah, good evening, and you can see I'm present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beale.
Present. Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Bell.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Channer.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm here, present.
Thank you. Councillor Helm.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. Councillor Hull.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Councillor Skeens.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Just to let you know, that's everybody, isn't it?
No, I am here.
Councillor Boyce. Oh, he's come.
Oh, you are here. Oh.
I just gave apologies, Bob.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I am here.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Boyce. Members, please be advised that we have 3 public participants in the meeting this evening, and I will call on them to speak at the appropriate time. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence. May I have the apologies for absence, please, Bernard?
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies for absence from Councillors Dewick and Stamp. Thank you.
Okay, so we go on to item 3, the minutes from the 20th of January 2021. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on this date, which are found on pages 7 to 12, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move, and if you wish to second that motion, please
I'll second that, Councillor Scoons.
Oh, right,
Okay. I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hell. If any member wishes to raise any matter of accuracy, please use the hands up function to indicate, and I'll invite you to speak. Okay, I see no hands up. Bernard, you can't see anybody with hands up, can you?
No, Chairman.
Okay, so do you wish to agree these by assent? You happy to? If so, say so now.
Agreed.
Assent, Chairman. Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, those are agreed by assent. We go on to item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8, inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the hands up function now to indicate, and I will invite you to speak. Councillor Channer, could you go ahead?
Oh, gosh. Thank you very much, Chairman. My mute button's sticking a bit. Just to declare my normal one, non-pecuniary, I'm a member of Essex County Council, which is consulted on planning matters to do with mostly highways, access, education and other things in its remit that it should be consulted on by the authority. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anne Hull. You need to unmute yourself, Anne.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Stoney Hills. I know Mrs. Leslie Yates. So is that non-pecuniary, or do you want me to stand down?
When you say you know her, could there be? Well, I'll take advice from the officers on this. If you can explain your connection to her, whether it could be pecuniary.
She used to be one of our liveries, and she's got one of my horses.
So she's a customer of yours?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What do you feel, Bernard? Is that pecuniary or non-pecuniary?
I feel it might be bordering on pecuniary, Chairman.
Okay.
When you say she's got one of our horses, is that?
Sorry. It was a retired horse. She's got it. You know, it was one of mine once. Yes, but
so it's there's no business involved in this, Councillor Hall, is there?
No.
She doesn't keep the horse at your stable, for example?
No, not now. Okay. But she used to.
Right.
Through Chairman, what I would advise Council is, obviously it's always your decision. Officers can't obviously tell you, but my advice would be to consider if you were looking at this at home, would you consider that? Would a member of the public consider that you had a relationship that might obscure your view one way or the other? And that's just, I'd advise you to consider it that way. It's your decision whether or not you think you've got a relationship that crosses the line into pecuniary, but that's up. I said it's up to you, but that'd be the sort of way I'd consider it. Thank you, Chairman.
It's normally, if in doubt, Chairman, members leave the chamber if any doubt is in mind.
Right. I might do that to be on the safe side.
Okay. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you very much.
So that's item 5, Councillor Hull.
Councillor Hull, that's in connection with item 5, Annley House, Burnham Road, Latchingdon?
No, this is Stoney Hills,
Okay.
Leslie, 20-01166.
Yeah, item 6.
Item 6. Thank you.
6, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. I can't see any other member who has indicated that they wish to speak. If Councillor Hull, you could put your hand down, that would be marvellous. So let's move on to item 5, 20-00883/full, Annley House, Burnham Road, Latchingdon. We move to this agenda, which is found item which is found on pages 13 to 28. And in a moment, I'll call on the officer to present this item. Members, a reminder that if you wish to speak on this item, please make this known by using the hands up function within this meeting. I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and succinct. Ms. Staplehurst, could you please present this report?
Thank you. This application seeks retrospective planning permission for extensions to the tea room on the site and outbuildings within the site, and also the proposed extension to the opening hours for the tea room, and also the playing of live music. This is the location plan showing the site. This is the dwelling on the site, and this is the tea room outlined in green. In terms of site history, a 2014 application approved permission for the change of use of the rear part of the dwelling into a tea room, which you can see here. The 2014 application restricted the opening hours as shown here, and also stated that no amplified sound shall be used. The application proposes these following opening hours here, and then these proposed hours of music and amplified sound. So you can see on Thursdays to Saturdays, they're proposing to have it open until midnight, and still later on Sundays and bank holidays as well. These are the plans showing the dwelling with the tea room, but prior to any of the unlawful extensions taking place. This was sort of just after the 2014 application with the tea room to the rear here. This is the block plan. You can see the dwelling here, and then this is the tea room to the rear of the dwelling. These are some of the outbuildings on the site which are used to store materials in relation to both the house and the tea room use, and this is also an annex used in relation to the dwelling. This here is the neighbour, Lillian S, which has been referenced in the reason for refusal due to the proximity to the site boundary and the tea room and concerns in relation to the noise impact. So this is an aerial view of the site, just to indicate the expansion to the tea room which has taken place since the original application. You can see it was relatively small tea room in these photos. An extension had taken place here, and then a further extension to the rear and to the side took place in 2016. And this is the neighbour to the west, which also has a rear projection which isn't shown on some of the plans, but this is the whole of the neighbouring dwelling. So this is the existing floor plan as it is currently, with this part to the rear, this L-shaped part, the tea room. These are the existing elevations. So this is from the front. You can see part of the tea room projects to the side, and this is the tea room projecting to the rear. And the other two existing elevations. So this is from the rear, this is the tea room. This is the proposed floor plan showing internal toilets to be provided here, and an additional internal door lobby area here. It's also been stated that all the single glazed windows have been double glazed with sound resistant units. There are no changes proposed to the elevations. These are the floor plans of the outbuildings. And the elevations of the outbuildings. So these photos show the view of the tea room to the rear looking southeast. So this single story part is the tea room with the dwelling behind. It shows the dwelling from the front. This is also the tea room. This is the main entrance, the door here into the tea room. And just showing the whole rear projection. Some further photos showing the tea room within the site. And then these two photos show the neighbour and how close it is to the boundary. This is sort of the original part of the dwelling, and then this extension projecting to the north. These photos show some of the additional double glazing that's been installed, customer notice in relation to noise, and some photographs of the outbuildings. Overall, the additional development and extensions that have taken place on the site are considered on balance to be acceptable. However, it's considered that it has not been demonstrated that the extension of the opening hours, particularly into the evening, in combination with the playing of amplified sound, would not have an impact, a detrimental impact on the western neighbour, particularly due to their close proximity all the way along the shared boundary. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have one public participant for this planning application. In line with the public participation scheme, I now invite the applicant, Mrs. Tina Lightman, to read out her submission. May I remind you, please, that you are allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with this scheme. Go ahead, please, Mrs. Lightman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Tina Laikman, and I have been the owner of On the Latch for the last 2 years. I applied straight away for a music licence as I've been a singer all my life. I have put music events on from day one. I've always informed my neighbours of anything I was planning to do, and I am very aware of my neighbours as I live here and I intend to for a long time, and I don't want to upset anyone. I've put on events on many occasions and I've not had one complaint in 2 years. I've done several things to prevent any inconvenience to anybody else. I've had high performance windows, the fitted doors, like you say, acoustic glass, even though I've had a test done recently and we was like a sound test and we was well under the limit. I have signs everywhere asking people to leave the premises quietly and be considerate of my neighbours. My direct neighbour is in full support of us. That's the one you're talking about. I'm not a drinker, so I'm fully in control of my business. My customers are middle-aged and upwards, and they only go out looking for a good time, not for any trouble. We have hundreds of followers on Facebook and social media, all with very, very positive feedback. I wouldn't want to upset anyone. This is the third application now, and I'm sure my neighbours have had more than enough time to voice any concerns they may have had, but they haven't. I'm trying to run a successful, stress-free environment for everyone to come and enjoy themselves with no trouble caused to anybody else. I have been in ownership for the last 2 years and I've achieved just that. I will and continue to work with Malden District Council. Thank you for your time. This is very important to me, my family, the staff and the local community to make On the Latch a success. Thank you. Sorry, I'm really nervous.
That's all right. Thank you very much indeed. Right, just a couple of things. First of all, I just want to confirm there was, do I understand it correctly that the tea room was small in the first place and then it developed without permission, and this is effectively retrospective permission that we're looking for? I heard a comment to the effect that from Ms. Staplehurst that the development has been acceptable, considered acceptable. Is that correct?
Through you, Chairman, it's correct that it was just a small rear extension initially, and then additional extensions have taken place since then. But we do consider that the operational development that's taken place in terms of the extensions and the outbuildings is acceptable. It's just the concern in relation to the neighbour and the noise and the opening hours. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you. And as I hear, Tina Lightman says that the neighbours aren't bothered. Of course, we don't have any way of confirming that independently. And I would remind all members that just like social media, sometimes people don't want to or comment in public, so we have to take care of that. So let's move on. The recommendation as set out within the report is as follows: that the planning application 20-00883/full Annley House, Burnham Road, Latchingdon be refused for the reasons as detailed in section 8 of the report. If any member wishes to second that motion, please unmute your microphone and state your name now. Vanessa Bell, your hand's up. But you're muted, are you? I can't see.
I am, yes, sorry, that wasn't to second. No, that was to speak. Apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I have any seconders for this? Okay, there being no seconders, what happens now? Do I have to sort of come up with a suggestion that it be approved and then we discuss that?
No, you can still move the recommendation without a seconder, Councillor Skeens, and go on to the discussion.
Okay, well then I will do so, and we'll move on to the discussion. And I see that a hand is up. Councillor Bell, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I do have concerns about the opening hours. My alarm bells ring with anything that goes beyond 11 o'clock, particularly on a weekday. We are, you know, the Dengie is a rural area. We're not a city. And in my experience, I don't want this to come out wrongly, of kind of local nightlife, pubs, restaurants, etc., is they close at 11. So I'm concerned about the midnight. That is an issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bassinger.
There we are. I'll try and take my hand down if I can. There we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually the councillor that called this in. So what I would like to say is that having read the report and listening to the presentation just now, one of the most important things I feel is that that it's an important source of employment to the local community and a hub for the local community. I don't really know the tea rooms myself. I don't use the tea rooms, but this is a retrospective application for the buildings. And I think, as we can see from the officer's report, there doesn't seem to be any reason why we cannot legalise these buildings. I believe the business was bought before. I think the buildings were actually put in place before the new applicant actually bought the business. So it's not as though they've extended it themselves. So they bought the business in good faith. I believe the buildings were already there. And as I say, there doesn't seem to be any reason from the officers actually why we shouldn't allow this application to go through. The main concern seems to be about the opening hours. I'd also like to say that they have already been granted an alcohol licence and a licence to play music and live entertainment. So the real issue seems to be mainly about the outside space and the opening hours. So I really feel, because it's, you know, this is quite an important hub for this community. Latchingdon doesn't have a lot going on. There isn't a lot going on for people sort of my age and plus, who kind of, you know, are not really interested in being in nightclubs as such. And so I would really like to move that we approve this application, and then, you know, with conditions possibly for the opening hours. But I really think this is something that we could do and would be a good thing to do for this community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bassinger. Councillor Howe.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, great.
Well done.
I would like to agree with Councillor Bassinger. We do use on the latch from where we are. It's a good central point from all the Dengie. We don't have to travel too far. And I would like to approve it. Yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chairman. We can't amend this planning application, and the concern is about music and the late night music. believe that it is a good business and it should be supported. However, I have this serious concern about the late night music. Planning and the local licensing committee are not the same thing, because it's had its consent granted for its music license and alcohol license doesn't mean to say that the planning would be the same. Could I ask the question of the presenting officer about lawful development if, as I think Councillor Bassinger said, these buildings have been present for a number of years before the purchaser bought them? Would they have a lawful development certificate ability to be granted? Chairman, through you.
Yes, please. Ms Staplehurst, would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Chairman. It's possible that if the applicant wishes to submit a lawful development certificate for the buildings on the site, then that is a possibility. They can do that, but that isn't what's been applied for at the moment. So the application's been assessed as a planning application rather than sort of against the time limit criteria in relation to immunity from enforcement.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. That was the answer I expected. However, there does seem that the applicant will not need to be too concerned about retrospective permission for the buildings themselves. I will have to think on whether I'm going to support the applicant on this or the officer's recommendation, because the music is a serious matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. Councillor Boyce, if you could put your hand down, Michael. Councillor Helm, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you take yours, go to 3.1.13, additional glazing has been, windows will be shut and they don't open because they've got air conditioning, and maybe condition that the patio doors to the patio are shut as well, and nobody outside while live music has been played. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, just considering that, I think the practicalities are that in the summer and in the heat, air conditioning or no, people will be coming in and out, the doors will open, sometimes doors will be left open unaware, without intent. My feeling is, I might as well say it now, that I'm generally in favour of this, but I do have problems with music licences that go beyond 11 o'clock. On to Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So am I right in thinking that we can't amend this? Because I would have suggested that we amend it and that we say opening until 11.
Yes, can I pass that on to Mike Lee or indeed Louise Staplehurst? It seems to me that there's no reason why we couldn't revise the conditions, but I may be wrong and Councillor Boyce may well be right.
Thank you, Chairman, through you. In most instances, a council has to determine the application that is submitted to it, and Councillor Boyce is correct that we can't amend an application. We don't have the gift to do that. But the slight difference with this is that this is actually in relation to a condition which is separate to the operational development that's ongoing. So we would have the power to determine the application in relation to the built form, the physical operational development, and then impose conditions as we see fit. It's no different to if it was a whole new application and it was for a shop and they wanted to be open to a certain time, and we just, for example, we sometimes actually give longer hours than what the shop has asked for, because while they might want to be open those hours, we give an appropriate time frame. So when it comes to conditions, we do have a little bit of freedom that we wouldn't have if it was just we were discussing a rear dormer and a rear extension and we only liked part of it or something like that. So that when it comes to conditions, yes, there is ability to maybe be a little bit more flexible. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Councillor Bassinger in a minute, but Councillor Channer hasn't spoken yet.
Sorry, I hadn't quite finished, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
I'm sorry.
So,
Sorry.
sorry. So that's helpful. So that I would propose that then as a condition. But just to note, I have direct experience of something similar to this, having lived next door but one to such a venue. And it doesn't matter how much you've got in the way of noise insulation, every time that door opens and someone enters or someone leaves, you are hit by a wall of sound. So just so people are aware of that, but I would suggest we condition opening till 11. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Channer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm largely, well, certainly in support of the business, and certainly I will declare I live in Hawthorne, but not near to the venue. I've only heard very good things about it, and I was interested in the environmental health comments, which actually I thought sounded positive, and it actually indicated matters could be dealt with by condition. I think they did highlight about outside, but otherwise they were saying certain things could be dealt with by conditions. I think we're hearing from the officer. Can you please tell me, have we from environmental health, and I can't see anything on the report and the office hasn't mentioned it, and the lady who runs the business has indicated she's been having events. Have we ever had any complaints about noise about that venue, regardless of what time or day it is? Because I couldn't see that as a negative at all within the report. So I'm assuming there has been none at all, which makes me feel very much persuaded to see this not as an issue that would necessarily cause fundamental distress in the area, because I think it's probably been operating for a while. And I'd just like some responses to those sort of inquiries, please, if possible, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, Louise Staplehurst, can you help us with that?
Through you, Chairman. I'm not aware of whether any complaints have been received by environmental health, but I would like to sort of emphasise that we need to sort of view the application in perpetuity, and even if the neighbour hasn't objected or no one sort of had concerns up until this point, the site may well be well managed at the moment, but if it changed hands or if another neighbour moved in next door, then the situation could change. So we do need to sort of look at the application in the future as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to pick up from where Councillor Helm left off, really, and just to say that, you know, the windows don't open, there's air conditioning. They say in the report that they are putting a screen, so should the door open, that would muffle the sound. They've also done various tests, which I'm no great DB expert in sound, but the last test, it seemed to me, was less than the ambient sound when they did a test from the border, I believe. So it seems to me as if everybody's done as much as they can. There doesn't seem to be any complaints. They seem, as far as I'm aware, they're on good terms with neighbours, and I do understand going forward this could all change, but in a way, as we're always told, we shouldn't be, we should be dealing with what we're dealing with right now. And what we're dealing with now is this application with these people at this moment. And yes, going forward, I agree, who knows how it would be managed. But it seems to me it's being managed very well. It seems to have a great deal of support in the community. That's all I know. And as I say, a great source of employment. So I would now, like to put forward that we approve this application, and then maybe if Mr. Lee can help with some conditioning if we have concerns.
Okay, so in front of us we have the recommendation, which is, Matt Lee, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Just it's okay to pick up a couple of points that have been raised by members. Ms. Staplehurst has sort of covered a lot of it, and some members have as well, but I just thought I'd maybe make a bit of a comment on them. For clarity, as Councillor Boyce said, planning and licensing committee and considerations are very different. And when just because a licence is granted doesn't mean that the planning should automatically follow. They do have different considerations. Issues such as public amenity is much more important in the planning judgment than it is in the licensing judgment, and that therefore is an important consideration for yourself members as decision makers going forward tonight. As already has been explained, if we grant planning permission for this with new conditions that are more generous, they will sit on that permission for its life. So irrespective of the current use of the site, as in how people behave, who owns it, the reasonable management of the site, etc., those cannot be expected to sit in perpetuity forever, because there may be a change in owner, customer, clientele, etc. And what we have to look at is the conditions that we can impose that can protect the amenity of the adjoining residents in perpetuity. And I know, as I always say, you've got to determine the application in front of us, but that is what I was also trying to explain is that is the potential of the application in front of us, not just the physical nuts and bolts. So like we have to consider how it could grow or change without the need for planning permission in the future. And it's the little things such as conditions and all these little things that we add in to protect the development in long term, such as removing PD rights if we've got a house and all those sort of things. And that's really what we have to be conscious of here, is that just because the current applicant, does everything well, doesn't mean if they were to sell it in, if they won the lottery and walked away in 6 months, it wouldn't necessarily be the same people with the same professionalism. My understanding is that we haven't had any enforcement complaints about noise, but also we haven't been made aware that there've ever even been any action or events outside of the approved hours. So I think we can only give that statement from the applicant limited value, because without knowing the frequency of them, knowing at what times they are, there wouldn't necessarily be a direct comparison to what is being proposed today. The hours are quite late. If you knew an event was happening till 6 o'clock and it happened occasionally and you're a neighbour, you may be more accommodating than if it was every night and it's a lot later. But without any of that information, well, more than just a comment made by the applicant, as decision makers, we should give it the weight that we can based on the facts that we have, and we have very limited facts on that point. So I think members just need to be slightly wary of the value that they give to those comments. What I would say in relation to noise is that there's a very big difference. I think it's 3:30 or something at the moment. The hours are for the business. It's a very big difference between that and midnight, or even that and 11 o'clock at night. How noise works is relates to background ambient noise, and in the Dengie, it's pretty quiet anyway, all of the day. But obviously later into the evening, it gets much quieter, and the ability for the background noise to hide and to mask any noises from so it's a business, whether it's yourself in your garden, whatever, it's much more difficult to hide it, and those noises are able to spread and travel much further. We also need to think about the decorum, the behaviour of the public coming and going from the site. We can't control that either through planning really or through environmental health. And I think it's roughly the human voice is about 60 decibels. So if late at night, as people come and go, if it's shutting at midnight, 11 o'clock, that noise from those people coming and going will be quite extensive. And it's, it's accepted fact that, the decorum of people that are leaving alcoholic venues late at night isn't always perfect. And that is a consideration where we need to take into account the protecting the public. So I do think members need to be very conscious of the fact that if we do grant this permission, there is real potential for harm, because our environmental health team are not comfortable with the level of information and detail that they have to say it would not protect the neighbours. If we do grant planning permission, there will be harm, so members, or potential for harm. So I think members need to be very conscious of that. In relation to Councillor Bell's point about 11 o'clock, it's a suggested amendment. I would be concerned to go that late without having more information. I think there is potential for maybe later than 3:30, but I think we've just got to be very conscious. I would always advise members to be pragmatic when it comes to the amenity of residents of the district. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Matt. That makes me think that there may be a case then for refusing it on the grounds that I assume that they get another free go at this. Am I correct in that, Matt Lee? In other words, that they could come back with more information and proposals for the hours that might be more likely accepted. Is that correct, Matt Lee, that this wouldn't cost them more, given the fact we're in COVID and nobody can go there anyway at the moment?
Chairman, I'm just checking the planning history.
Through you, Chairman, I believe the free go has been used. This is the second application at the site. Thank you, Chairman.
They would obviously be able to appeal to the Secretary of State, which is free as well. There is no fee for that if we dare to abuse the application.
Right. Okay. Councillor Helm is next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Pubs have extraordinary hours at some times, they're granted, but they don't always use them. And it might be the same here. They might just need to use them hours now and again for an odd party, birthday party, something like that. This isn't probably they're going to use it all the time. It'll only be just now and again, because there's only a need when you have big parties or something like that. And I think we should pass it as it is. And to curtail a business like this is ridiculous. We need businesses in this country. And if we're going to try and put them all out of business, well, that's the way things are going at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I don't think we're trying to put them out of business, but I understand your comment. Councillor Hull, and then I'd like to wrap this up as soon as possible, please.
Sorry, I'd just like to say, you know, we do need businesses like this in this area, and we were lucky enough to be given a licence, but it didn't work for us because it wasn't, you know, we didn't have enough people to organise it, but we've still got a licence and we use it, and hopefully, you know, if people don't use it, they won't need the licence.
Thank you. Councillor Bassinger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I agree with Councillor Helm. I think, you know, this to make this a viable business, we should grant this. And I have made a proposal, and my proposal is to approve this application. So that's my proposal. I think that's the only one on the table at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, well, at the moment, we've got a...
Thank you.
We have the officer's recommendation.
Yes, we have the officer's recommendation. It has not been seconded yet. So I'll ask one more time for a seconder for refusal. Is there a seconder for refusal?
Yes, Councillor Bell.
Councillor Bell has second refusal, so therefore we'll have to vote on refusal as it stands. So I therefore ask Bernard, would you please I don't think this is going to go through on assent, so would you please, Bernard, take a vote on this?
Yes, Chairman, just bear with me and I'll call the voting sheet up. Members, I will take your names in alphabetical order. Can you please state clearly for, against or abstain, starting with Councillor Bassinger?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Beale?
Against.
Councillor Bell?
For.
Councillor Boyce?
For.
Councillor Channa?
Against.
Councillor Helm?
Against.
Councillor Hall?
Against.
Councillor Skeens?
Abstain.
Thank you, Chairman. So that's 2 for the officer's recommendation of refusal, 5 against and 1 abstention.
Okay, so that means that it has not been refused. And therefore we will go to Mark Bassinger's proposal that it be, when I'm going to put words into your mouth, Councillor Bassinger, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that this application be approved subject to planning conditions. Is that what you want, or are you saying, Councillor Bassinger, to be accepted as it is?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I would say as it is, to be honest.
Okay, well, that is the proposal on the table. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Helm, seconded.
Okay.
Chairman, for clarity, there would, even if, sorry, we would need conditions, irrespective of what times we were looking to put on. If we didn't do it with any conditions, they're able to be open 24/7.
Yes.
So my advice would be that first things, obviously two things. One is that I'd maybe advise on something like this, that you thinking about the suite of conditions that could be quite complex, is that they're delegated to officers through consultation with yourself.
Sure.
And secondly, obviously, we need a reason for approval as well.
A reason for approval. Well, okay. Can I ask the people who have? I'll start with Councillor Helm. Could you give me a reason for approval?
This is a long-standing business that is well stood in the community and a much-needed meeting place for people to meet and be entertained. Thank you.
Okay. We're looking for planning reasons, I guess. I'm not sure whether that is correct. Councillor Bassinger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I called this on policy E1 and E5, and so those are the two policy numbers that I called this on, and that's to do with tourism and employment in the local area. I don't know if that would suffice.
Matt Lee, would that suffice?
Through you, Chairman. Reasons for approval are materially different to reasons for refusal, where, to be honest, I'm able to give quite a lot of help and support, which is not so available as a reason for approval, and case law is clear with that. A member of public must be able to watch this committee and understand and know why members have gone the way they have. Reasons for refusal, I'm able to give a lot more advice as long as it's been discussed, we can put it together. So, but what I'll say is, as always with members, you need to think about really the reason for refusal, and your reason for approval either needs to talk to that reason for refusal, as in, you know, let's say design's a nice simple one where officers say it's unattractive, members go, we think it's fine. So the reason for approval should either look at, or that you think the benefits outweigh the harm, such as it's contrary to policy, but X, but because of Y, the benefits are better for the district than sticking to the policy. I would raise some concerns with Councillor Helm's point, because that would infer that, and remembering every decision we make as a committee affects the whole council, and you would infer from Councillor Helm's point that almost any business outweighs protecting harm, because outweighs protecting the amenity of neighbours, because the statement that says, I'm not saying that this is what Councillor Helm was saying, but at the end of the day, this will be the council's decision and it can be used against us. And in another committee, there's been a couple of unusual decisions, let's say, and they're already starting to be quoted at us at appeals. So especially with the remoteness, lots of agents are seeing lots of our committees. So I just think we need to be very careful and specific where, you know, Councillor Bashir, what I would say is that, you know, I said I can only give limited advice, but you did talk about your consideration of the noise assessment and how actually you think it's not actually going to necessarily cause any harm. So, you know, you have raised that, and I would think that would be a logical thing to look towards as a bit of guidance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Channer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. What I was going to say is, well, Mr. Lee sort of jumped in and said it. Yeah, we do need conditions, and actually, when you read the environmental health response, I think there's suggestions in there what can be mitigated by conditions. The whole response on the order paper, and it does make various suggestions. So I would say to support and obviously define what the reason for approval is, and then I would say delegate to yourself, Chairman, to Mr. Lee in consultation with yourself to make sure the conditions do cover perhaps those issues that environmental health have suggested form part of the conditions of the approval.
Okay, that sounds good. Matt Lee, have you got in your head anywhere, and from the discussion that we've said, a possible reason for approval?
As I said, I can't really, and as I said, very different to a reasons for refusal, and I can't give members their reason for approval. It does need to come from yourselves, and a member of public needs to have seen what the members were doing. And as I said, I've given some advice on what points were discussed and what I think you should look towards. But I said it's very materially different between approval and refusal, and I'm unable to really, I can't give you that reason for approval. And hopefully I've given you some pointers that might have clearly given you some indication of what might form a good reason for approval. I'm
not sure I entirely followed them, but what I will say is that clearly there seems to be in this committee a mood to approve. I would suggest that one reason for approval might be that we're happy that the development there can be legalised based on precedent, and that therefore we will approve it subject to conditions organised by the officers. Does that amount to anything meaningful, Matt Lee?
If members wish to go, that's in their gift, yeah. But I'd definitely advise that conditions are delegated to officers, taking into account the complexity of this application. Okay, all right. Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you, Mr. I would just like to say that, you know, maybe one of the reasons could be that the applicants have mitigated the sound issues that were brought up by the environmental people, and have, in fact, you know, we have now solved that problem, and so therefore that would be a reason to approve.
Okay, I think we've probably discussed this enough. I think it's clear where we're going. The proposal is that this application be approved, subject to conditions, a suite of conditions sorted out by under delegation by the officers. So let's vote on this.
In consultation with you, Chairman. I did say delegated to officers in consultation with you as Chairman.
Yes, sure. Okay, that's fine by me. So moving on to a vote, can we please have the roll call, Bernard?
Yes, Chairman. Can I just double check who seconded Councillor Bassinger's proposal, please?
I think it was Councillor Helm, but I'm not quite sure.
Councillor Helm.
Okay, because it was very, very quickly. Okay, thank you. Members, I will take your names in alphabetical order. We're now voting to approve the application, subject to conditions being delegated to officers in consultation with the chairman and ward members. I'll start the vote with Councillor Bassinger. Can you please state clearly for, against or abstain? Thank you.
For. Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you. Councillor Beale?
For.
Councillor Bell?
Against.
Councillor Boyce?
Against.
Councillor Channa?
For.
Councillor Helm?
For.
Councillor Hull?
For.
Councillor Skeens?
Abstain.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, members. That concludes the vote. We've got 5 for the for approval, 2 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 6, 20-01166 land south of Charwood and east of Orchard House, Stoney Hills, Burnham-On-Crouch, pages 29 to 54. Please note that a member's update in relation to this application has been circulated prior to this meeting. In a moment, I'll call on the officer to present this item. Members, a reminder that if you wish to speak on this item, please make this known by using the hands up function within this meeting. I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and succinct. Staplehurst, please, could you present your report?
Sorry, Chairman, quickly, was Councillor Hull staying for this item? I wasn't quite sure.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, you want to say something, Councillor? You'll need to unmute yourself, Councillor Hull.
Okay. Yes, I think I should go.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just ask?
Go ahead.
I just wanted clarification from Councillor Hull, because this is in effect our last item. So I just wanted to double check with Councillor Hull. Did you want to be called back into the meeting just for the closure? Because this is the last item on the agenda.
I don't mind. You can leave it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hull.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Planning permission is sought for the construction of an access road and 1 dwelling. As has been stated, please note the members' update with additional public comments. This is the location plan where you can see the site in red here. 3 dwellings have been approved here, here and here in the blue area, and another 6 dwellings have been approved to the south here. This is the neighbour of Orchard House, and this is a new dwelling which is under construction. These site plans show the other dwellings approved within the wider area on this plan, and a closer view of the relationship between the site and the two neighbouring dwellings to the west. These are the proposed floor plans. And these are the proposed elevation plans. This application is a resubmission of a previously refused outline application. That application was refused due to concerns regarding overlooking from the Juliet balcony at Orchard House, which is here. So concerns overlooking this rear part here. Under this application, you can see that the dwelling has been repositioned so that there is no usable amenity area between the dwelling and Orchard House. The garden area is to the south here. So there are no longer concerns in relation to a loss of privacy to the application site. The new dwelling being constructed here is considered to be located at a sufficient distance so it would not directly overlook the amenity area of the application site. It's noted that concerns have been raised in an objection letter with regard to the impact of the proposal on Orchard House to the west, regarding overshadowing and an impact on their view. It's noted that this neighbour has a seating area between the dwelling and the application site here. The proposed dwelling would be visible from this neighbouring site. However, the loss of a view is not a material planning consideration. Whilst there could be a minor impact on the sunlight to the neighbouring garden when the sun is particularly low in the sky, due to the separation distance of 9.2 metres between the two dwellings and the fact that the proposed dwelling would be single-storey, it's not considered that there would be such a material or detrimental impact in planning terms that would justify the refusal of the application. It is noted that permitted development rights will be removed in relation to outbuildings and extensions/dormers on the dwelling, so no further development would occur at the site that would impact the neighbour in terms of a loss of privacy or a loss of light. Photos show Orchard House here and the newly constructed dwelling from the street scene, and then a further view of Orchard House from the front. This is the view southeast along the proposed access, so this would sort of follow through here and the dwelling would be up to the side here, and then this is the view, so the dwelling would be approximately here, and that's the rear of Orchard House. You can see this is the rear of Orchard House with the Juliet balcony that would have overlooked the amenity area in the previous application, and then further photos of the rear of Orchard House, and then this is the rear of the newly constructed dwelling. Overall, when taken into account the planning history for the area and all material considerations, it's considered that development can be found acceptable and would not have a materially harmful impact on neighbouring sites. It's therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have two public participants for this planning application. Firstly, may I call on Mrs. Yates, an objector, to read out her submission. Mrs. Yates, you are allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with the scheme. Please feel free to start.
Hello, I've also supplied for reference some further photos that are more accurate and actually will depict how narrow and what minimum separation distance there is going to be between the two. And I'd also like to say I've tried to keep this as concise as I can, but it's very difficult when you're living in this day in, day out to actually show you. So I'd like you to make reference to the photographs that I have took from my bedroom while sitting on my bed. And this is my master bedroom that I've had to move out because of the workmen that are actually frequenting this area where the prospective build is going to go. I actually can't live in my bedroom with my husband because I'm so exposed. And for reference, a Juliet balcony consists of 4 floor-to-ceiling windows that aren't glazed like a bed, like a bathroom. These are clear view windows that are higher than 5'8" high. They're 6 foot high, and they cover nearly the whole span of my bedroom. And across the whole back of my house are main habitable areas of room. There's not even an ability to be able to put secure screening trees that have to be nearly 30 foot high. So I will, if I may, get my 2 minutes and try and get as much in as I can. Right, we have provided extensive objection letters and photographs for visual accuracy, as previous plans submitted by the developer have not correctly shown the location of Orchard House. Therefore, as existing residents are entitled to a greater degree of privacy to their rear garden boundary, the 45-degree rule needs to be considered, and the less than 10 metres separation distance to this backland infill development is crucial to your decision of this application. Photographs have been sent to make reference. Orchard House's plot was the end of a garden belonging to Myrtle Cottage, hence the position of the house on the plot and the lack of amenity area to the rear. As seen from the photographs provided, the rear of Orchard House has clear low-level privacy-sensitive windows across the whole rear elevation, and in situ a Juliet balcony serving the master bedroom. The design was approved by planning less than 6 years ago with the knowledge of a narrow amenity area to make use of not a view but an open outlook of 2 acres of beautiful meadowland filled with wildlife and natural landscaping, avoiding an open outlook directly behind. We strongly object and oppose the amended application for this unacceptable development. Loss of privacy, intrusion, obstruction, removal of an open outlook, severe loss of natural light, unacceptable overshadowing, and the loss of amenity due to the less than acceptable separation distance between the house and the proposed development. A mere 9.6 metres, that's less than 30 foot, and you're sticking a 2,000 square foot bungalow in between. A building of this mass and structure at such close proximity, particularly from our bedroom, with no possibility for surrounding mature screening trees or hedging at less than 10 metres distance to our home, will have an important effect on the area and quality of life for us as residents. We will be hemmed in and overlooked and not be able to live in the house as it was built.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to have to stop you there. That sound is the sound of your time running out, but you've made your point very well, Mrs. Yates, and thank you very much for your contribution. I now call upon Mr. Rowe, the agent, to read his submission. Mr. Rowe, you are also allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with the scheme.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Stuart Rowe, the agent for the applicant. Members have seen the background to the application. This site would be the only undeveloped plot in the middle of what would be a street of 9 bungalows. It was left out of the earlier application, as has been explained, because of concerns not about the impact of the new building on Orchard House, but because of the risk of overlooking from that Juliet balcony in Orchard House to the rear garden of the proposed bungalow. That was the sole issue. The scheme architects worked with your planning officers, and the scheme has been amended effectively to position the building so that it intervenes in those views and that a private amenity area of the new bungalow is created. I mean, I'm not aware of a 45-degree rule that the objectors raised. There is no such rule, and there won't be a loss of privacy because this is a bungalow. There are no rear-facing windows at all, so you can't look from the ground floor up into a first-floor window where you're going to have boundary fences, etc. So I don't accept that point. So really, I commend the officer's report to the committee. It's very thorough. It deals with all of the issues that have been raised. These aren't unusual issues in areas like this. I hope members feel able to approve it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, well, the recommendation as set out within the report is as follows, that the planning application 20/01166-full land south of Charwoodand and east of Orchard House, Stoney Hills, Burnham-On-Crouch be approved, subject to a signed unilateral undertaking to confirm that the developer will contribute to Essex Coast RAMS and the conditions as detailed in section 8 of the report. If any member wishes to second the motion, please now unmute your microphone and say your name.
I'll second that, Councillor Helm.
Councillor Helm is seconding that. Thank you. I will now invite members to make any comments that they would see fit upon the report. Starting, I believe, with Vanessa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd invite Mr. Rowe just to put 45-degree rule into Google and he will find that it is very much a thing. Apologies. So I know we have many applications at Stoney Hills and there are always much wringing of hands and with a heavy heart, and that we have lost appeals at Stoney Hills. But members, this is different. This application is different. This application represents serious loss of amenity, loss of privacy, loss of quality of life for the residents of Orchard House. The Juliet balcony, the windows are floor-to-ceiling windows. The property is less than 10 metres away from Orchard House. The side of the building, so nobody goes out to put their bins out and looks up. There may be no windows, but it's still the property. We have to look at the proximity and we have to look at the requirements of the Essex Design Guide, because members, they're not being met with by this proposal. Looking at it, looking at the photographs, looking at the block plans, it is a clear case of overdevelopment. And whilst I acknowledge the inspector's comments about Stoney Hills becoming more of a suburban area, this isn't suburban, this is high density, pack 'em in, pile 'em high. Bungalow or not, it's still an enormous building. And I do not think this meets the planning requirements, and I do not think it is acceptable development, members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. Councillor Channer.
Could you just please put up the plan again, whereby it shows the bungalow and Orchard House and the proximity to now the boundary, well, the separating boundary, I guess the fence, because I think you said it had been moved back, so the garden was now at the side. So, yes, can you just point out then? I'm just looking at the red line. So, I thought you said it had moved sort of towards the boundary more, towards Orchard House. Has it not in position?
Through you, Chairman. Yes. So you can see here the house is sort of further central to the plot, sort of giving a larger amenity area here, and it also showed there was a rear door, so it sort of encouraged the use of this area as garden area, and also the fact that the main garden would have been separated from the house by the driveway. Okay. So that's been amended. No sort of doors to the back. It's moved closer to this boundary. Yeah. So this wouldn't be a sort of a usable amenity area. All of the doors open out onto the garden space to the south. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Can I please ask supplementary, Chairman, what's the height of the proposed dwelling, please? Can I just see that, the plans of that again, please? Okay.
So 5.7 metres.
So 5.7 metres. Okay. I do actually, Chairman, I'm afraid. I mean, 5.7 metres is well over 16 foot in my book. In fact, quite a bit more than that. 17, 18, well, 18 probably. And that's quite high. I mean, bearing in mind the height of a 6-foot fence or whatever the boundary is. So you're talking about 3 times that in the height of the building. I have real concerns also actually with the design of the building, hearing there's no windows or anything in the back. Now, that might have been done to help the situation, but I would say on design, that's enough grounds, and I know we can refuse on design alone. But I do actually think there will be loss of light to the rear amenity space of Orchard House. I recognise what the officers say, but I think the juxtaposition of that proposed new dwelling will affect amenity, and I do believe the layout of it, orientation, and proximity does actually cause probably demonstrable harm to the amenity and residential amenity or living conditions of Orchard House. So I have very grave concerns about this proposal, Chairman. Very grave.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the councillors who want to speak. Are there any other councillors who would like to comment? I don't see that there. Yes, Councillor Bassinger, please go ahead.
Great. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just really like to again pick up on what Councillor Channer has said. When I look at the design of that and I see a whole back wall with no windows, I think, you know, it looks like, you know, a bit of a pig and a poke. Really, it looks like we're putting a square peg into a round hole. It's sort of been juxed around to make it acceptable. But even for the people that buy that property and live in that, with a design like that, again, it just looks like very bad design. If I look at a whole house and there's a whole wall, a whole back area with no windows at all, you just think, well, there's something, you know, intrinsically wrong there. The design is incorrect. So my feeling is very much is in line with Councillor Channer, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see that Leslie Yates is asking to speak again, but I'm afraid I can't let you speak again. It's just the way that the rules go. But as you can see, your points are being put across, so I'm sure you're content, or at least I hope you are at this stage anyway. So now we've had the recommendation to be...
Chairman, is Councillor...
Oh, so, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I've got Matt Yates, Matt Lee there wanting to speak. You're quite right. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a relatively quick point. In relation to a couple of points quickly, the 45-degree angle matter that was discussed, I'm assuming that relates to what was discussing the impact on light, what we normally take from, but that's normal. Let me get my teeth back in. I think what the problem is, that's normally taken from a property to the side, and that's how it's looked at. So there isn't really a 45-degree from the other distance, because how you work out the 45 degree is both angle upwards and angle outwards. So I don't, and for it to fail, it would have to meet both. So a distance of 10 metres would probably mean that the 45-degree angle would not fail because it's a two-part test. I'd just like to highlight in relation to outlook from the neighbour, the council would not have granted permission taking into account that the property looked towards a field, because that is not something we could protect. That would not have been a material consideration for the determination of an application, because there is no right to protect that field. And the only issue I'd also want to highlight, particularly in relation to design, and Mr. Topos, can you pull up the elevations again? I just noticed that a couple of members mentioned that. As members know, design is subjective. There's a level of personal taste in that, and when we look to refuse an application, we've got to show that there is demonstrable harm. What I would say is that this application, to an extent, has taken a design approach that reflects the nature of the site, and it has resulted in the rear elevation having no fenestration or no doors. However, the fact that that is the rear elevation shouldn't really be a consideration per se. The application should be looked at in its whole, in its entirety. I live in a house quite now that has a side elevation with no windows. My last house had no windows at the side. My parents' house has no windows at the side. So it's not unusual to have properties that have one elevation or two elevations with no fenestration or opening no windows. And irrespective of any other points, I would advise members to not look at raising any concerns with the design, because I think to say that just because there is an elevation, because at the end of the day, it's an elevation. It's not the front elevation that's going to be visible from the street. It is just a single elevation with limited views from public vistas without any fenestration would be a very difficult position to take as a council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I see that there's no one else to speak, so I think I would like to say something. Stoney Hills. Back in the day, there was an opportunity to stop what was happened at Stoney Hills. As I understand it, officers recommended the refusal of one particular critical application, pointing out to members that if it was allowed, it would set a precedent and open a floodgate at Stoney Hills that could not be closed. It was, as I understand it, a clear warning, and yet for who knows what reason, members voted against the officer's recommendation and for that particular application, and those same members reacted to later applications, wringing their hands, as Councillor Bell put it, and saying this is terrible, we must stop the development that followed. And what has followed is a series of refusals and increasingly expensive appeals, each one lost by the MDC at considerable taxpayer expense. And we've now arrived at a situation where it seems we're actually getting costs awarded against us in a manner that appears punitive, that we're almost being wrapped over the knuckles for refusing things at Stoney Hills because we didn't take the warning of the officers before. So at stake here are the very evidently impassioned concerns of Mrs. Yates, and of course further fears of cost to the taxpayer, because it seems that the reason why the officers have are asking us to approve this is that they think we could not win it at appeal. I'm now going to go back to Matt Lee and ask if anything that I've said is right or whether anything I've said is wrong.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll catch that rather dangerous pass and try and deal with it. I don't think you can ever say there's ever one moment that restricts or unlocks or ties council in per se. I can agree though, obviously there was, before I was here, an appeal was one that allowed a number of dwellings in Stoney Hills, and I can recall a number of applications that were recommended for refusal were approved by the South East Area Committee. And then subsequently, more applications were refused, and I think we've pretty much lost every single one at appeal, from what I can recall. That is, and I do acknowledge that, we look at the appeal for the 6 bungalows to the south of this site, where members, we granted 2, then we subsequently as a committee refused 6, and they went to appeal and got costs. I don't know if I want to say it was punitive, but what I will say is that I was very shocked as a professional officer that an inspector gave us costs against us and where he basically said the applicant had an expectation to be allowed to have 6 on that site after 2, which I was very shocked. I wouldn't go and necessarily word it how you have, Chairman, but I would say professionally I was very shocked at that statement. We shouldn't we shouldn't approve applications just because we're scared of costs. But on the flip side, we shouldn't be refusing applications that should be granted permission. We have to assess an application, what's in front of us. We have to show demonstrable harm as always. Every application will have some impact on somebody, whether it's an advert on a street scene, just for everybody that's driving past it, whether it's an employment, noise and disturbance or pollution. Every application will have some level of harm, and what we have to do as decision makers, whether that's members or officers, is consider the various material considerations, the pros and cons, and actually show that is that harm to such a level of harm, keep saying the word harm, that it actually is a reason for refusal. I think Staplehurst's report goes through this application very well. There is a distance of 9 metres. This property is a bungalow, and generally it's considered with a fence that there will not be overlooking issues per se as a starting point in relation to that matter. And I think members just need to be conscious of there will be some level of impact on the neighbours, but is it to such a degree it warrants a reason for refusal? And the professional advice from the officers that it isn't. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I'd just say again, this is different. None of the previous applications have had the impact that this one does. And I thank Councillor Channer for mentioning demonstrable harm, because I do believe not being able to use your bedroom, not being able to walk along your landing to your bathroom without the possibility of someone looking in at you, that is demonstrable harm, and that is what the occupants of Orchard Lodge are facing with this. And I think, yes, you know, the Essex Design Guide exists for a reason. You know, there are expectations that, you know, of good design. And I think Councillor Bassinger pointed out, oh no, sorry, Councillor Channer again, this is huge. This is huge. It's 19 feet, was it, I believe, high. It's, please, you know, members, really think about this. Really consider the quality of life of both the occupants of Old Orchard House and any possible occupants of this were it built. And if you look at it, yes, it's contrived and it's cramped and it's overdevelopment. It's not a nice little infill that makes a street of bungalows complete. It's cramming something in that doesn't fit there. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just add, as my understanding is that as the building has been is likely to happen, that is where Mrs. Yates fears or has experienced people able to look in through her bedroom. I don't think the bungalow will be able to do that in its finished state. But I'm not making any judgments here. I'm instead passing that over to you. And we're going to go to the recommendation now with a view to voting on it. The recommendation that sits before us and has been seconded, as I understand it, is that this application is approved. And therefore, I think we should now go to the vote on that. Berna, I see no more people wanted to comment. So, Berna, could you please take the vote on this?
Can I just check, is that a legacy hand, Councillor Bell? Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, so we're voting for the officer's recommendation of approval. Can you please state clearly for, against or abstain, starting with Councillor Bassinger?
Against.
Councillor Beale? Councillor Beale?
For.
Councillor Bell?
Against.
Apologies. Councillor Channer?
Against. Boyce. For.
Oh, sorry, apologies, and Councillor Boyce is there. That's Councillor Boyce is for. Councillor Channer?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Helm?
For.
Councillor Hutt? Councillor Skeens?
Abstain.
Thank you, members. That's 3 for the application, 3 against and 1 abstention.
Right.
So
this comes to a casting vote. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that the reasons given, well, before we get to that, I don't know whether we can do this before we get to that, but I'd like to say that if I am really torn on this, because normally on most applications for Stoney Hills, I would vote against, because I feel there's been massive overdevelopment. In fact, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to make that decision. I'm going to vote against the officer's proposal.
Thank you. So actually then that means that we have 4 against the approval, 3 for the approval and no abstentions. So that's
okay. And I'd like to add that, as I understand it, that is the last application at Stoney Hills, which will be under the pressure, the enormous pressure that comes from the appeals process, because from now on we'll be able to put this normally. But I do warn everybody that this is likely to go to appeal, and we may.
Through you, Chairman, it hasn't been refused yet. You've just it's just not been approved.
Sorry, go ahead. So go ahead, Berna. Sorry.
Sorry, it's as Mr. Lee says, it's just been, it's actually, the approval has been refused. So now we need to deal with the, okay.
So the approval, so we now have to put a new motion forward.
I'll propose that, Councillor Skeens. I propose that we refuse the application. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Okay, that's fine. Well, then let's call the let's call the roll.
Refusal.
We need some reason.
Yes, we do. Okay, reasons for refusal, please, folks.
Bear with. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Bear with. I think its style, design and bulk would result in a contrived and dominant development which would cause significant and undue harm to the character of the surrounding area and the amenity of the neighbours, contravenes policies S1, S2, D1 and H4 of the LDP.
Mike Lee, how does sorry, Matt Lee, how does that sound to you?
Chairman, I'd prefer it if members didn't read reasons for refusal out. They've already prepared, if I'm honest. But
sorry, I was just reading off the agenda supplement there, Mr. Lee. I do apologise.
If they're ever going to do that, I've just advised members to state that before they, because for a member of public's from the outside, it could be seen to be that you'd already come in predetermined. So that's why I'd advise members not to do that. And if they do, to make it clear where they're getting the wording from, just for the public's knowledge. Members.
And I also add, for transparency, that was the reason why Burnham-On-Crouch Town Council refused it as well. So there's a history there. I do apologise.
Just put some context. It's always helpful. Thank you, Chen. If obviously it's design is a subjective matter, and if that's what the committee considers, then that's in their gift. So I'll leave it at that. Obviously, the officer's recommendation was for approval, so I'll leave that with you, members.
Just looking to see if anybody else has. I know we're very keen on getting for one strong reason. Can anybody else come up for another strong planning reason among the councillors? For refusal, other than the one stated by Councillor Bell? I'm going to take that as a no.
Sorry, through the chair, Councillor Channer had some excellent ones through the chair.
Councillor Channer, can you recall what those were?
Well, I think I referred to when I spoke. I did have concerns about the height of the proposal, and in terms of its position, bearing in mind sunlight. Because I do think it will have an effect. In fact, the development, I think, will have an effect on the amenities and living conditions of persons in Orchard House. I do think, on balance, the officer's report, I think, referred to demonstrable harm and said there, I think, wasn't any. Perhaps my material weight goes the other way. I think there would be demonstrable harm with this proposal. That's just my view, putting a different weight to the assessment to the officers on this one. From my planning training, I am allowed to apply a different weighting to issues raised, and that's my personal consideration.
Thank you, Matt Lee. I think you have our reasons for refusal. The recommendation now is that this be refused. And we go to the roll call now, Berna.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, members, we're now voting to refuse the application proposed by Councillor Bell and duly seconded for the reasons as outlined by both Councillor Bell and Councillor Channer. Members, I will take your names in alphabetical order. Please state clearly for, against or abstain, starting with Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Beale.
Against.
Councillor Bell. For. Councillor Boyce.
Against.
Did you call my name then?
Yes, Councillor Channer, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I just heard a little, it wasn't very clear at all. For.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Councillor Helm.
Against.
Councillor Skeens?
4.
4. Thank you, members. That's 3 for the refusal, 3 against, no abstentions.
So I have to add my casting vote to that.
Yes, Chairman.
I will vote for.
No, that can't be right.
No, it doesn't sound right, does it? What's gone wrong?
Oh,
there?
sorry.
Councillor Skeens voted this time round.
I did, that's true.
Yes, so it's 3-2-4, isn't it?
It's 4-4.
4-3.
3 against.
Okay, I'm a little bit unclear. Sorry, can we just clarify that?
Can we just clarify here? It's 4 for the refusal, 3 against.
That's more like it. Yeah, that's
no
right.
abstentions. I thought that's what I said at the very beginning.
I thought it sounded like
Sorry, I
it's
thought we were doing approval.
This is for, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Werner just said refusal then.
This is for the refusal. It's 4 for the refusal of the application.
No,
this is
for, right. Okay, right. Yes, sorry. Right. Yes.
3 against the refusal and no abstentions. So
that's
So that's carried.
That's carried. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so on to item 7, and as you know, item 7, Steeple Bay Holiday Park have withdrawn. So we go on to number 8. Any other items of business that the chairman decides are urgent, and I have none. So I therefore thank you for your contributions this evening. I now draw the meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Councillor Beale speaking.
Councillor Beale.
It's very disconcerting to find an applicant is jumping up and down in a few of all of us. It is off-putting. And could I suggest that the persons, applicants, etc., control themselves a little bit more, because when we're deciding something, we need to have a clear mind, and we don't want people jumping up and down, waving our hands as if they're which can influence us in the way that we vote.
Okay, I completely understand your point, but I would say that if we were in a live chamber, it would be very difficult for people to avoid people silently expressing their joy at a victory. But I can see that it can be a bit of a distraction, certainly. So, Mrs. Yates, if you could please keep as calm as you can. So thank you very much for your contributions, everybody, this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 19:31. That's 7:31 in normal time PM, as the meeting is now closed. Members are advised not to enter into any further discussion on this forum and to please leave the meeting promptly. Thank you very much.